Hello everyone. One of the things I put off learning for a while was about level streaming, but it's not nearly as complicated as I thought it was going to be. My only issue was that all the tutorials I would see was walk into a box and then the level will load, and like you run down the hallway, level loads, etc. But what if you wanted to do something more kind of old school, walk up to a door and then it loads the interior of a building or something like that? So here in my example I've got two rooms set up, left one, right one. And when I jump in, see, it's gone. I left the transfer thing there though, but walk up, touch the door, and it transfers me over, and you can still see that's where I was. That's where room 1 is. And then you can transfer back, and it unloads the other one. So it's not really all that complicated, so let's get into it. I'm gonna jump over here. I got a clean project going. So to start with, yours will probably look like this. That levels panel won't be there, and if it's not, you can find it up here in the Windows tab, Levels. And what it'll say when it first pops up is this feature is disabled when world partition is enabled. So this doesn't work with the world partition, but it still has its uses. So what we are going to do is we're going to create a new level. I'm just going to create a basic empty map, and then you'll see that now the levels thing says persistent level, and that is just this very basic map right here. The persistent level is the thing that remains no matter what. All the other levels can be loaded and unloaded, but this one will remain. So anything stuck here, it will remain. So we're going to go to File, Save All. Save current level as. Now figure out where you want to store all the levels you're going to make. I generally do everything here in this blueprints folder, so we'll create a new folder. This will be levels. And for this one, this is our main hub world persistent level, so I just usually call it main. You can call it persistent, you can call it overworld, whatever you want to call it. It's up to you. So now we have our main level that will hold everything. When we jump in, can run around fine. Now the way we can add levels to this, we don't have to go create a new level and then try to load it in. We can do it right here. So levels, we can create a new one, and then we can pick the kind we want. Since I have all my lighting and stuff set up in the persistent level, I'm going to just set up an empty level. If you wanted, you could have different maps with completely different environments, atmospheres, etc. You can have each one have its own lighting system, just like you're loading into a level the other way. But for this one, I'm just going to create an empty level. And this one will be, I'll just call it the overworld. Because this will work with terrains and work with all kinds of stuff. I'm just going to call it main room. Probably main room 1. And you'll see if I click this little toggle, nothing disappears because we haven't added anything to that yet. What you may also notice is that down here we have a current context menu that pops up. And what this does, it allows you to switch between the levels that you want to edit. So if you want to add something to your persistent level, you click that. Now I'm editing things here, and you'll see it's highlighted in blue over here. If I want to add my main room, highlighted blue, I just make sure, you want to make sure you're in the right context for what you're editing. And it can get confusing sometimes a little bit. I've made a mistake and suddenly enemies are falling through the map when we unload one. But I'm gonna real quick window load layout UE4 classic. That'll make it a little easier. But my levels is gone. Alright, there. Then we can just dock it where we want it. So with my main room context, I'm going to go into level prototyping, grab some meshes, and I'm just going to set this right here, scale it out. I'm just going to create a super basic little room real quick. Now we've essentially got what can be considered a little room interior. Come on, there we go. And when I untick that little eyeball, you see it's gone, which is what we want. I am going to add a light in here, so I'm just holding L, left click, and then just so when we do come in, we'll be able to see. You can swap back between the details panel and the levels panel real easily. I'm just going to bump that down a little bit. Ah, ooh, bright, okay. Under levels, I'm going to go under my persistent level, and I'm just going to add a post-process volume real quick. So make it infinite extent. You don't have to follow along this part. This is just so it's not as hard on your eyes as you're watching. And since it's in the persistent level, when we go in here, it'll affect it too, even if this main thing is loaded or unloaded. Alright, so now we got our main room. Now that light's a little bit too weak. Good enough for now. Let's get back to the point. We can create another room. So I'll create a new level, create new, empty, and just the same way, I will say room 2. And what's really cool about doing stuff like this is when you're editing, if you're under the right context and you duplicate something, so I can just take this entire room exactly as it is. Holding Alt, I can drag it over, and it's duplicated into room 2 automatically. So if you place a bunch of stuff and you're like, this will go in my other room also, then just make sure you're in the right context, copy it over. Good to go. Might actually delete. Needs to be a way to tell the difference between these rooms, so I'll just delete one wall from each. Why not? That'll work. I did 2. Yeah, well, anyway. So the way we'll be able to walk up to our door and do something with it is we need a very basic interaction system. So I'm going to go into my third person blueprint folder, open my third person character, go back into the third person blueprint folder, and under blueprint I'm going to create an interface. This will be BPI underscore interact, and it's just going to have one function inside of it called interact. Compile that. This is what's going to allow us to communicate with our door transfer, which is the next thing we're going to create. So right click, blueprint class. You'll want to store these, you know, wherever you want to put them, interactables folder, etc. You wouldn't just want them all in like this, but just for time constraints and so I don't take up too much of y'all's time, I'm doing it this way. BP underscore door transfer. And then we need one more blueprint class of an actor, and this is BP underscore transfer target. So this will be the door that we walk up to in order to interact with, and this will be where we move the character to as the new level loads. So let's open our door transfer, and all I'm going to add to this one is a box collision. Just something to register our trace. And in its details panel under the collision settings, I'm just going to set it to block all. Since it's a door, you would expect the player to not be able to walk through it anyway. Now here we will also need a few, still in the door transfer, I haven't swapped over. We are going to add under class settings the interface that we just created. So BPI underscore interact. Compile that, and then we can right click and add an event interact. Now when we interact with this, we want to fade the camera out, load the level, transfer the character, and then refade the camera. So we are going to need the player camera manager, and we will start a camera fade. Now there is no fade activated, so we're going from 0 to 1 on our alpha over the course of, say, half a second. And it should hold when finished. This will keep the screen black as everything else is going on. Then we are going to load stream level by object reference. This is handy because then it just creates a drop down of all the levels that you have. Which means we can also promote that to a variable. This will be level to load. We want to make sure that it is visible after it loads, and for this level to load variable, we'll click that little eyeball, and then it'll be editable for each version of this door. So it'll be reusable for any doors you want to use. Now after it's completed, we want to do a, let's see, a small delay. We'll say 0.5 seconds. Then we will want to move our character. To move it, we'll need to tell it where it needs to go, so we will get a reference to our transfer target point, and for that variable type, it will be a transfer target object reference that will also have the eyeball clicked, so that we can tell it each time which one we're doing. Then we can set our, we need to get the player character, because that's what we're going to be moving. Sorry, I'm a little rusty making videos, so if I get tongue-tied, I apologize. We'll get the player character because that is who we are moving. Then we want to set the actor location and rotation. This way we can position them inside a building, and if the building is facing a different way, they won't be looking at the door when they walk in. We'll be able to tell it exactly where we want them to go. Now for the location and the rotation, we're going to get our transfer target point and then get its get actor transform. With that, we can right click, split that struct pin, and then punch in both those right there. Oh, wait a minute. Back this up a little bit. So what we need to do for the location, because this is going to be sitting on the ground and your character kind of sits halfway in this capsule, you want to make sure that you're adding to it. So I'm going to add, we'll say, what is it, 90 units. That way it lifts it above the ground and then it'll drop. So we'll set the actor location and rotation. We'll do another small delay, just a 0.2, just to make sure that they're fully in place before we start fading the camera. Then we will get player camera manager. We're going to, oh, that's a sequence. We're going to start our camera fade, and this time we are going from alpha 1, which means the screen is fully covered, to 0 over the same course of time, and it should hold when finished. Now you can adjust the color if you want to, I'm not going to. Then we need to tell it which level to unload, so we'll do an unload level by object reference also. I tried this with the by name and then getting the level name, and then it didn't seem to work as well, so just doing it this way seems to work better. So we'll promote this one to a variable also called level to unload. Tick that little I. And you want to make sure that this unload stream level is at the very end of anything you're doing, because this actor that you're interacting with will be in the level that is being unloaded, and this kind of works as like a destroy actor. So anything after this isn't really going to be firing. So you want to make sure it's way at the end. So we'll compile that. Now we need to go set up our transfer target point, which I am just going to add a couple things, which is one is a cone, just because it makes it easier for me to register where it's at. And I usually, if you click this, then you can scale it all at once. Just set it to about 1/4 of the size, move it up a little bit, and then turn it over. Kind of like a little arrow pointing at, here it is. Speaking of arrow, let's also add an arrow component. This will help us easier tell which direction the rotation of the actor is in the world space, and such which way our character will be facing. Compile that. That's pretty much all we need to do with this one. So if we come back in here, and we'll, let's see, I'm in room 2, I need to be in room 1 for this one. Yeah. You want to make sure you're swapping. It can be, sometimes you'll forget to and you'll realize later on, but it's very important to make sure you swap context when you're altering your rooms. So I'm going to add in just a little area so we know where the door is supposed to be, essentially. Move it over a little bit. Outlier. That'll work. And then I'll swap over to room 2. Copy this and move it into place, and I'm going to set it over. You know what? Let's do, just to show you what I mean, I'm going to rotate this and put it against the wall on this side. Alright, now with that done, let's go into our main room, room 1, and we'll add our door transfer target. I'm just going to add it right here and then just scale it up to fit the door so that when we run up, interact, it'll know where we're going. Now while we're in the same room context, we need to place our transfer target. It'll say the actor will be placed outside the bounds of the current level. This is fine. And we'll rotate it to the direction we want it to be. Move it up a little bit so that the camera ain't zoomed in on our mannequin's backside. The reason we're doing this is so that this level can find this actor and it's not unloaded. Now, in room 2, we need to do essentially the same thing. Add our door transfer, scale it up to fit, and then transfer target point. Yep, that's fine. And then, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then just like that, we're good. Now, for this one, we'll go into the details panel, because now here's where we need to tell it what level to load, what transfer point, etc., etc. Now we can do this all from the editor. So the level we want to load for this one, that's in room 2, we want to find main room 1. Should have named that better. And the transfer point will be this one over here. Clicking this little eyedropper, you can just select it like that. You can also do a drop down, but it gets confusing when you got the same ones. You could rename it if you wanted. Probably a better way of doing it, but the little eyedropper works really well. Then the level we want to unload is the room we just came from, so room 2, bye-bye. Now for this one, same kind of setup for the room we're loading is room 2. Its transfer target is the one inside room 2, and the level to unload is our main room. So we'll save everything real quick, and then we'll jump back into our third-person character because we have to set up our input to be able to actually interact. So what we can do is right here under the graph, right under the jump, I'm going to right-click, type in 1 on the keyboard, and then you can find keyboard events really easily by using 1. Then with that selected, if you click this little keyboard picture right here, you can tell it what key you actually want to use. So I'm going to use the E key. So see, it's turned into an E key. Now when we press this, I want to fire off a trace in order to see what's in front of us and whether we can interact with it. So I'm going to add a new function over here that will be our interact trace. And it's just going to be a very quick little setup, so I'm just basically going to get the actor location, and I'm going to get the actor forward vector. This will tell our trace where we want to start and what direction we want it to go in. So I'm going to do a sphere trace by channel. Plug that in here. Now we're going to get our actor location for the start point. It'll start on our actor, and then we want to move it forward, and the way we do this is we tell the actor location, alright, we are going to go forward, so we'll add to our location our forward vector that we're going to multiply. Right click, convert this to a float, and we can tell it how many units in the world space we want it to go forward. So I'll punch in 75, go right here. And that is our end. So it starts at our actor location and then goes forward from our actor location 75 units. I'm going to set its radius to be about 20. It can be whatever you want. This will also work with whatever interaction system you have. I'm going to set its draw debug type to for duration, just so we can make sure our trace is firing off the way we want it to. On the out hit, I'm going to drag off and break the hit result. Holding B and left clicking gives us a branch, so we can check to see if we actually hit something with it. So if we hit something, then we want to check to see if our hit actor, right here, is valid. Using this question mark one, we can get this executable thing, and we just plug that in right there. We want to make sure that we hit something, and that we hit something that is considered a valid actor to run events from. So for our hit actor, we are just going to fire off our interact message. Now this will communicate with our interface, transfer it over to the actor that we are interacting with, and tell it run whatever functionality you have associated with this. Compile that, we'll run out to our event graph and just drop that in right there. Compile that, and we should be good to go. So we'll jump in and play. Now we're firing off our line trace, that's good. But you may have noticed that our level over there has not loaded. None of our levels are loaded except for the one we're standing in. So what we need to do is we're going to go up here to our list of world blueprints, and we're going to open our level blueprint. You'll notice that we also have sub-levels, and we can edit the level blueprint for each one of our sub-levels also. We only need the level blueprint of our main room for right now. So on begin play, we will load level by object reference. Load stream level by object reference. And for this one, it's just whatever room you want to start loaded, which is our main room. There it is. And we'll make visible after loaded. And then we're good to go. Now when I jump in, boom. A big, beautiful building. Look at this workmanship. Doesn't it fill you with joy? Anyway. Now I can jump in, and you'll see there's nothing over there. We can see our cone for our transfer target. Run over here, and I've transferred over. Now that one's unloaded, this one has reloaded. And you probably saw, as I was transferring, it already loaded. What we can do, if you want it to fully fade the screen first before it does that, we can just move this to the front side of our load, and we'll make this duration just 1/10 of a second longer than the duration. It probably works with the duration matching exactly, but I always like to add little buffer zones. And then we can just cut this one down by 0.1 so that it's essentially the same amount of time. And then we will jump back in and check it out. Ba-bam. Should have moved the player start. Needs more cardio. So now, if I'm looking at it, you'll see screen fades out, then it loads it in. And we're in our next room. Then we can run back, and then there we go. So yeah, that's a way you can have your interaction system load your stream level. So I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you're prepared, because we're going to be coming back with some really cool stuff. Hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am. If you are and you want to, subscribe, go for it. Alright, see you all in the next one. Bye.